Let's take Sooner football and add two opinionated, very passionate ladies. What do you get? Talk Sporty.
Yeah, you do.
Well, yes, you do. Welcome to Talk Sporty. This is Season 1, Episode 5. I'm Dana.
And I'm Shawn.
And we are here to talk sporty.
Okay, yeah. So you're going to do a lot of the talking because I wasn't at the game.
Shame on you for missing the game.
No, I'm so bummed. I mean, not that, it was Kent State, so I wasn't too worried about that. Long story about my daughter. My daughter used all 4 of our tickets, so I'm sure she had a fabulous time. But I love night games. I think the weather had to have been perfect, right?
Until halftime. And then a north wind blew in, and it was chilly.
Oh, really?
We sit in the upper deck.
Yes.
And we had shorts on, and we needed a jacket.
And if you know anything about Dana, you know that she gets cold really fast.
Always.
I mean, it might be 45 degrees outside, and she's got like the heaviest parka that you would wear in Alaska at the game. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, my husband even got cold, and I'm thinking if he just had some extra clothes, he could give them to me, but he didn't. He had shorts and a t-shirt.
He was no help.
I was out of luck. I just had to sit there and rub my legs.
But when that Oklahoma wind starts to blow, there are times that you would not believe how cold it feels. Yeah.
Right. So. And I don't know that it affected the play on the field.
Sure.
But in the upper deck, it definitely was cool.
Okay.
My watch said it was 75 degrees. It felt about like 60.
Yeah. Yeah. And
with shorts on.
And considering that it's been 100 degrees lately, that's a big change. We're not our bodies have not acclimated to 60 degrees yet, and all the people in the north are saying, "Shut up."
Exactly.
Okay, so it was I saw a good chunk of the first half, and I was very concerned that it was going to go the way of the App State Texas A&M game.
Oh, yes. Well, there'd been that upset, and Notre Dame was upset.
Yes.
So, yes, it's kind of like, is this just a Saturday for upsets?
Yeah, well, and even the Texas-Bama game, while Bama won, that game,
was way too close.
Yes, looked like it might end up being an upset, too. So, yeah.
Yes. Well, the first quarter, no scores, just kind of traded the ball back and forth, punt.
Yeah.
Really didn't make much move. Second quarter, Kent State gets out there and they get this field goal, and then it's kind of like the Sooners still haven't scored.
Right.
And we get under 2 minutes in the half. So 29 minutes before we'd scored in the game.
I know. How is that possible? And our defense looked like they were doing well, and then they would make tackles for loss, and Reggie Grimes looked like he was great again. And then all of a sudden, they'd let him have, like on the 3rd and long, they'd get the first down.
Well, we'd get them to 3rd and long, and then they'd somehow, the quarterback would hurry around or make a quick little pass, and all of a sudden, they've got a first down again. And we'd set it up and get them tackled early, first and second down, 3rd and long, and they'd complete it again. So, it was not, I don't know, the defense, the first half did not look as good as they had the first game.
Right.
I do think that they had a good offense. Kent State could run the ball. He was not as an accurate a passer, but they definitely were running the ball, and he was pretty good at quarterback keep and sneaks and stuff. Okay. Yeah, he was. He seemed like a big guy, so he was a little hard to pull down.
Okay. But that 2-minute drill there at the end of half.
Yes, the 2-minute drill, they went into that, and Gabriel completed pass to Marvin Mims on the left, another pass to Marvin Mims on the left. And then the third time, another pass to Marvin Mims in the end zone.
Yeah.
And it was just
3
like,
in a row.
It took, something like 50 seconds, and we're up 7-3. OU continued to try and get the run game going, and we just were not effective. I don't know if it was our offensive line not able to block their defensive line, or were they just running a different scheme that we weren't quite prepared for. I'm not sure. But the passing game was what finally got us moving and allowed us to score.
Yeah, well, I felt the way that drive went, I felt a lot better. And we have some friends getting ready to move, so we went to their going away parties. So we were following the score the second half, but not watching it. And so then it's like, okay, it's all good. But got Marvin Mims in the game. And I'll tell you, on the commentators said that Kent State runs a very similar offense to us. And so that Kent State was playing against the kind of offense they play anyway. Yeah, I mean that their defense sees that in practice.
Yes, I know Venables had talked about all week trying to have us prepared, and the fact that we had an up-tempo offense was very similar to their offense.
Yeah.
Which should help both defenses kind of know how to protect against it.
Mm-hmm. So.
But yeah, third quarter comes out, and we definitely made halftime adjustments. Okay. One thing I remember is in the past with our prior coach,
the one who should not be named.
Exactly. We should have made halftime adjustments, and they were usually negative halftime adjustments. Right. And so I turned to my husband. I said, I sure hope we have some good halftime adjustments that are positive.
Right.
And it seemed like it took halftime, and then the guys were back out, and it was lights out.
Like a different team? Okay.
Totally different team. And I know Venables said in the post game that he just went in at halftime and said, we're doing okay. We've just got to do better.
Right.
We're not scared. We're not in trouble. We just got to execute better. And we can do that. We know how to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it sounds like maybe they didn't get hollered at or told how bad they were doing, but let's do better.
Yeah.
And they changed some of the things they were doing, and it helped. Once we came out in the third quarter and we had several completion passes. Then we got the running game started, and that's when Marcus Major was able to score. He scored the first touchdown in the third quarter by running. Okay. And that seemed to be when their defense, Kent State's defense, kind of realized, I don't think we can keep up with these guys.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's good, because it was a weird football Saturday. I mean, it was starting, with that Bama game, which I know Texas says that they're a different team, but I've heard that for many years.
Yes.
Recently, Ewers is still an untested QB, and so we don't know how he's going to respond, and we still don't necessarily know how he's going to respond.
Right.
But I'll tell you, Alabama didn't look very good, and Texas looked, especially their defense, way better than I expected. Like we were texting that during the game to each other.
Right. I kind of kept thinking, where has this Texas defense been? We haven't seen them like this in years. But they hurried Alabama's QB. They were all over him. He would get sacked or hurried, and then when he had to be hurried, he wouldn't complete his passes.
Yeah, he did not look like the Heisman Trophy winner.
No, not at all. Yeah. Not at all. And Nick Saban on the sideline just kind of looked perplexed, too. Now, I didn't think Texas offense looked that great, but they were able to string together some plays and some runs and some passes, and they scored. They were able to keep up with Bama, but it was, low scoring.
Yeah. Of course, Bryce Young did look like a Heisman Trophy winner there at the end.
Oh, yes. The last possession, of course. He came full forward and missed that diving linebacker. He dodges him.
Oh, gosh.
He's able to run, and then they get a field goal, win the game. Yeah. Of course. That's how it always happens.
Yes.
But they did drop in the polls.
Well, they were number one, and Georgia has looked Georgia-like. Of course, didn't play a team like Texas this week, but still, Georgia's been amazing. So I was surprised they weren't number one to start with, since they are the defending national champions. But
right, I agree. But Nate Saban is the one, I think, at the start of the season that said this last year's team was rebuilding.
Right.
And so this year's team is much better. So they get a number 1 spot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll move up in the polls.
Yes. Yeah, we did. We moved up to 6 is what I just saw lately. Anyway, I thought we did a really good job. Our third quarter, we scored 2 more passing touchdowns. We had the running touchdown. Billy Bowman got in for fumble recovery.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So we had a takeaway.
All right.
We had a field goal. So we did a whole lot of scoring in the third quarter.
Okay.
Not very much the other quarters.
Well, did they put a lot of... Oh, okay. We got a safety. I didn't realize that.
We got a safety in the fourth quarter. A lot of the backup players were in on offense and defense for most of the fourth quarter. At least, I guess, halfway through the fourth quarter is when Davis Bevel came in for Dylan Gabriel.
Was he allowed to pass this week?
I didn't see him pass.
Okay.
I did not.
All right.
He might have snuck one in right at the end, but I don't think so. They let Javonte Barnes play some in the second quarter, and then he played more in the fourth quarter.
And he scored, didn't he? Did he score? Did I see him score?
No, I don't think
I guess I saw a really nice run that he did. But
he did. He had a couple of really nice runs. Yeah. Yeah, you saw that explosiveness with it.
Yeah. And then tell me about Drake Stoops' touchdown.
Oh, gosh, that was so good. He catches the ball, and he's just really like a little, he's just they're just getting him the ball to get it away from everybody.
Right.
And then he takes it and runs it, and you see him, you think he's going to stretch out. He's going to score. And he stretches out and just makes it inside the pylon as he's going down.
With only one shoe.
Yes, with only one shoe.
Yeah, with only one shoe.
And the crowd's yelling, Stoops!
Of course, yeah.
Stoops!
Love it. That's awesome.
Oh, and you missed the night lights.
That's okay. Please tell me all about it, because I knew they were putting in those LED lights, and then I'm like, oh, darn, I wasn't there.
Well, you couldn't tell anything. They seemed the same to me until we scored. And then it was really third quarter. Second quarter, it still wasn't quite dark enough to notice much change.
Okay, sure.
Third quarter, it was dark enough that as we scored a touchdown, then they turned all the lights off. So the stadium went black.
Oh, wow.
And then the red and white fireworks come up out of the end zones on the scoreboards like they have before. So they're up in the air, and then they turn the lights on in the corners, and they flash. And then they turn them off again for a second or two. And then they flash again. It was incredible.
It's a whole show.
At first, it was kind of like, what just happened? Did we lose power?
Okay, yes.
And then all of a sudden, it was like, oh, do it again, do it again, do it again.
So
they did that every time we scored. Yes.
Okay, so just really upping the game day experience.
Yes, most definitely. So night game, definitely a way to go for a fun experience in the Palace on the Prairie.
All right. And I also heard that it was loud, the stadium was rocking, and the students stayed at the game.
The students stayed. They were there into the fourth quarter.
Yeah, because they got called out last week by several sources. I saw it all over Twitter.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, they were there, and it was striped the stadium.
Right.
So every place was red and white except the student section was all red.
Okay.
And when it got cold, I thought they won't stay the whole game, but they did.
Good.
Yeah, they did.
Okay. I like that.
In fact, most all of the crowd stayed the entire game or until mid-fourth quarter.
Yeah, and that's a game. I mean, we had that game in hand, and a night game lots of times. I mean, I know we lots of times will leave early because we're driving home. And so I'm glad that people stayed and supported the team, and especially the students. I'm glad the students stuck around. And it was crazy hot last week, too. I get that, too.
Right. Even though it was cold, it was so much nicer than the week before when it had been so hot. It really was.
Yay.
So it was excellent. Just to mention about the safety, Kent State was pushed way back into their territory, and the quarterback took the snap, and he ended up in the end zone. And so David Aguibo is running around chasing him. We're like, get him down, get him down. Well, he runs around and runs around. He actually stepped on the back line.
Okay.
But it wasn't called right at first. And he runs around, he escapes and actually gets out to the 5 or 7 yard line.
Oh, okay.
And we're all like, how did
that happen? How did he manage that?
Yeah.
Oh, poor kid. He worked really hard, and then it ended up being a safety.
Yeah. And so then they had to have a review, and then they clearly showed his foot on the back line. So we got 2 points out of the deal. So David Aguibo got a safety. And then we had another pass interception, right? Probably Kent State's last possession.
Okay.
They had a backup quarterback come in at that point, and he threw an interception to Justin Harrington.
Okay.
So we were excited about that.
Yes. All right. Good. That's good to hear. I like hearing those good things. And
So offense looked good, defense looked good. If we take away the
first half,
first 28 minutes,
right,
the
like
offense
you said,
looked really good.
First 28 minutes. Well, yesterday was just a lot of that kind of day for a lot of teams. So we were not the only ones, and it was weird. It was, some weird juju yesterday for college football.
Well, and they put the scores up on the scoreboard. Toby Rowland would show, Arizona State and OSU. It was a close game at first, kind of like ours. They kept showing Florida, Kentucky, and that was a close
game. Yeah.
They would show stuff like that, and you're kind of like, that really wasn't supposed to be that close.
Yeah.
It was very, very strange week, very strange Saturday.
Yeah, sure. And then Baylor, BYU.
Oh, yeah, but I couldn't stay awake.
Well, and Tech Houston went into OT also.
That's right.
That's kind of interesting. I mean, Tech ended up winning, but the Big 12 teams playing the future Big 12 teams, those games went into overtime. So Houston and BYU showed that they can hang with the Big 12.
Right. Well, yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, BYU won. So,
right.
I wasn't really expecting that, but it was there. So maybe that was
Lee Corso picked him. So he was
did he?
I think he was the only one on game day who picked them. And everybody though on game day did say it's hard to play in Provo at night. BYU comes ready to play, and I watched a little bit of that game because it was late. It was the late start, and the whole stadium they were all in their blue, and they were loud. Yeah.
Okay.
So they were there. I took it as they decided we are going to show you guys that we deserve to be in your conference. And they did. I mean, even if they hadn't beaten Baylor, they would have shown that, which I did. I wasn't surprised that they would show that. I mean, I think that the people who are coming into the Big 12 are worthy competitors. So,
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
So, anything else about the game?
That was pretty much it. I heard some stats about Danny Stutzman.
Okay.
I think he had something like, I wrote it down, 21 tackles in the game.
Goodness.
And he had 4 tackles for loss.
Oh, that's a huge game.
Yes.
That's a career game.
Teddy Lehman was talking on the post game and just said he's grown up. He's a man now, and he's going to call him Dan Stutzman. Danny.
He's no longer Danny Stutzman. Hello, Dan. How are you? Well, Teddy still goes by Teddy, though. And
right. I thought, how can Teddy say that? He's still Teddy Lehman. But
that's right.
Anyway, that was my take home from the post game analysis. Okay. I thought it was cool.
That's awesome. I love it. That's great. And that's a game we were supposed to win. We won. First half didn't look like we kind of expected. I kind of expected it to, look a little bit more like week 1. It didn't, but that's okay. We, got the W and moving on.
Persevered and definitely had some halftime adjustments that were in a positive manner.
That's good, and I can't wait for the next time we have a night game, and I will be there.
We'll have one.
Yes, and I will be there.
Better.
Okay, all right. So, last week, we mentioned that some topics we wanted to talk about in the future, and so I thought this week, let's talk about college football expansion.
Yeah, tell us about it, Shawn.
Okay, so you said you thought it was like time for us to go to 12 games. And, it was going to happen. I mean, money is what rules everything these days anyway.
Does.
Yeah. And so they finally voted on it. It was first floated like in June of 21. And it was kind of interesting to me at that time because it was a little bit similar to what they're talking about as far as picking the teams. But right before that or right after, I can't exactly remember those months, but OU and Texas had announced they were going to leave for the SEC. And I remember thinking at the time, I'm like, well, if they do this college football expansion, OU would be in it almost all the time. They'd be... And if you move into the SEC, that's really not the case. And I've got some numbers on that I'll share in a little while. But back to college football expansion, just kind of the logistics of it. So they're going, the goal is 2026 to start it, 2026 season, but they'd love it if they could start it at the 2024 season. It's going to have 12 teams. The 6 highest ranked conference champ teams will be in there. And so that's all the conferences, right? The 6 highest ranked. And so like this year, Cincinnati is not part of a Power 5, but, they were ranked high. I mean, they were one of the top 4 this year too, but that wouldn't always be the case, but they, it still would be in it. So 6 highest ranked conference champions will be in there and then 6 at-large teams. So it is possible that you could have 3 SEC teams if those at-large teams, are ranked.
Are ranked in the top 10 or ranked high.
Yes, ranked high. But you could also have a Power 5 conference champ that if they're not one of the 6 highest, they wouldn't make it. And there have been years that, like a Pac-12 team might not have been in it. Let's see, the ranking system is going to basically still stay the same. So that college football conference committee, selection committees, still, it's going to be pretty much unchanged. This is what they say right now. They're still working out like all the very specifics. But and the 4 highest ranked conference champs get buys.
Okay.
Right. So if you, let's say you're the number 2 SEC team, but you're not the conference champ, you might be ranked ahead of one of the top 4, but you're not going to get a bye. Because the 4, you have to be a conference champ to get a bye.
Okay.
Yeah, so the 4 highest ranked conference champs will get a bye. They'll be seeded 1 through 4, and they'll have first round byes. And they said the quarters and the semis will be played within bowl games, but the very first round is probably going to be on campus games.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the higher ranked team will get to host.
Get home field advantage, right? And so, of course, the top 4 teams with the byes, they don't get that advantage. They don't get to have a playoff game on their campus because they have byes, and that's just going to be the first round. And let's say you are one of those teams, 5 through 12, and you're the higher seed, but you decide and let's say you're close to a big stadium and you'd rather have it at a big stadium. Let's say you're TCU and you, instead of playing at Amon Carter, you would rather play at Jerry World.
Oh.
And Jerry World can let you play there that weekend, which scheduling might be an issue, but you could conceivably maybe play there. Right. And then you have more fans that can come and all that. So it'll be interesting to see if some of those teams that have that home field, if they want to keep that or if they'd rather go inside. And it will also be interesting to see when those Big Ten teams, they are going to want to have it on their campus, right? Because the Southern, it's cold, but they're used to that, right? They know how to do that. But these little Southern teams might not know what to do with that snow.
Right. The SEC doesn't want to go up there.
No, it's kind of like, the NFL games that end up being played in, New England or Green Bay. And some of, those teams that are used to be playing in indoors, they don't know what to do with that. So that'll all be interesting. So it still does make me wonder kind of about, and like we said, it's all about money, but about OU going to the SEC. Because if with this system, if they took this system and went back and said OU would have made, now mind you, they've made the college football playoffs 4 times the way it was, but they would have made it 6 times.
Yeah.
In this
That's
system.
True.
They would have made it 6 times. And some of the times that like OU wasn't there, like the very first year they did it, I think it was 2014, 2 Big 12 teams would have made it, TCU and Baylor, I think it was. I've got that here, but
oh yes, because one beat the other and kept one from being the champ.
So Baylor was ranked 5,
higher ranked.
TCU was ranked 6, and so they both would have made the playoffs. And then they were pointing out how there are times Alabama was in, or another SEC team, but they would not have necessarily been in the 4 because they weren't a conference champ, or they wouldn't have had a bye the first round. They're talking about UCF would have been in there, in the 12-team expansion.
Right. Okay.
So it's kind of interesting. And they even talked about how there were some times, I guess it was like in 2014, where it would have been possible that Mississippi State and Ole Miss might have had to play in the first round, and how interesting something like that would have been, another, conference game and stuff. So that's a few of the things that, could happen. And they said the home games, they're pretty sure that's going to happen, but the bowl games might have something to say about that. And the Rose Bowl's maybe not really happy about that, because the Rose Bowl really, really likes to have their game at the same time on January 1st.
Yeah.
And they're not really keen, because the whole schedule's going to have to change some.
Right, that's true. So these playoffs, after that first game, would they take over the bowls? So
yes, that's what
those bowls would be waiting for the playoffs to come.
Correct.
Interesting.
And so it would be those kind of higher ranked bowls, because right now, how many bowl games are there? Like 30 plus?
30, yeah.
And so of course this won't, and so that's another thing. Are all those bowls going to go away? Are they still going to allow schools that, and sure, I would imagine the money's there. They're still going to allow schools that don't make the playoffs to have bowl games. But that's still, one of those things to work out. And they'll have the rotating bowls, kind of like they do right now, and how those, the semifinal games, those rotate through bowls, and same with the championship games. And so they're still going to, be doing some of that. But they said the way it is right now is the Rose Bowl still always gets to be on January 1st. I mean, other bowls are maybe going to have something to say about it too, but that's the one thing I read, is they kept talking about the Rose Bowl likes to have their game after the Rose Parade at a certain time, where the people can go to the parade and then go to the game, and and it's the granddaddy of them all, and
they may have to change
all the things. So some of the things for scheduling wise that they said, they might move the season up a week.
Okay.
To start. And they might start in weeks.
So that doesn't go too long.
Correct. Because then they start getting into not wanting to conflict with NFL. And NFL starts having some Saturday games and playoff games when college football isn't playing on Saturday. And so they've got to work all those schedule things out. And right now for the January 2025 championship game is in Atlanta, and the 2026 championship game, which is like the 24 and 25 season, but the 26 game is in Miami. And so if they push those things back, can they do it there? I mean, people schedule conventions and schedule those facilities, and especially NFL, years in advance. And so how is all that going to work? And that may change also when they can do this. And then also ESPN has the contract through the 25 season, I think it is, the college football playoff contract. And so that might be a big deal too, depending on how much ESPN wants to give up or negotiate or compromise. Yeah.
Well, and if you keep winning, you would play like 4 more games. Right?
Well,
to be in the championship.
So you'd play the first round, the quarters, the semis,
and then the
finals.
Championship.
Yes.
Right? So
yes.
So unless you got to bye.
Yeah. Yes.
If you got to bye, you just play 3 extra games.
Right, but
wow, that is adding a lot to the season.
Right.
Too.
Yeah, and let's not forget they're student athletes, right? And I know that the FCS division does this every year. So it's not that it isn't being done already, with another division of college football, but it is something, and then also because they did say that there is the possibility that maybe they would play the championship game the week before the Super Bowl. Well, the Super Bowl's not played until February.
Okay.
What about these kids who enter the transfer portal and want to transfer mid-year?
Right. And they've got to get ready for spring ball at their new place.
Yeah.
That probably starts in March.
Well, yeah, but the school year, well, I mean, I remember Caleb, it was late when he declared for USC, but classes at USC, because I think they're on the quarter, the trimester, they started a little bit later, but still that it was like by February, I think. Early in February.
I think by the 1st of February.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't attend class at OU if he was going to transfer.
Yeah. And so can you imagine, you can't play for a school. So that'll be an interesting thing if they have the championship game. And I know that's only a handful of athletes, right? But if they have the championship game like the week before the Super Bowl, then that means it's going to be probably, because I think sometimes the Super Bowl's the second weekend in February. It kind of rotates. But so that may be,
could be late January.
Yeah. See you guys. Bye. I'm out of here. Or whatever, So, yeah, that'll be interesting to see how that impacts the transfer portal stuff, too.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, that'll have to play out. And I don't know if they've even thought about stuff like that. They probably have, but
right.
I'm not sure they've considered the schooling, because that's really what the kids are there for.
Yes. Yeah, it's not to make money, although it does seem like everything, all the changes that are coming about in college football, whether it's NIL, which I don't begrudge kids, making some money. They don't have time to work when they're in college. And I know they're getting their college paid for, but, some of these kids need money to live on. So, okay. But the big, huge media contracts, conference realignment, all of it's about money.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Most definitely.
It's all about money. And this is about the product, because people don't, and it's fair, don't think that just 4 teams really always gives you the actual winner, or doesn't give other teams, doesn't give App State a chance to be a Cinderella team. And so yeah, it'll be interesting. But yeah, money's definitely a big thing with all of it, for sure.
Well, I can't wait to see how it plays out, but I am glad that they're going to open it up and have more games. Mm-hmm. I agree. When they limit it to 4 and it's based on personal opinions of the people on the committee deciding who's 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Right.
I don't think they're always definitely fair for everybody.
Well, because sometimes it's about money. So who's going to get, or the seating. I mean, I think this past year, the seating was about that. They wanted, if they had the chance to have Georgia and Alabama in the championship, they were going to seed them for that to happen.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And as you look at the AP polls every week, they're not always accurate. If there's a big game coming up with the number 2 team playing someone that's down in the lower 20 or lower teens, that lower team gets lifted up that week so that it's a bigger match for the TV. To say number 2 against 12 instead of 16 or 18. I've watched that happen for years. And then as soon as the game's over, that team was artificially elevated. If they lose, they're put right back down where they should have been.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to start, the other thing that's a big gripe of mine is to say that Alabama's number 1 at the start of the season based on last year
and reputation.
Why should we do any numbers until the first 4 weeks are played?
Yeah.
And then you say who's winning, who's losing, who's got a good team, and let's set the numbers then.
Right.
Bama may still get to be number 1 at that point. But especially early on like this, we've seen these losses. Should Notre Dame really have been 5?
They've lost
Probably
2 games.
Not. They've lost 2 games. Yeah. Should Texas A&M really have been 6? They've got a new quarterback.
Yeah.
And he's not very effective. So why did they start out at 6? Because they played well last year.
Right, and because they had the top recruiting class.
Yeah.
And Jimbo Fisher.
And this year's placement on that AP poll shouldn't be based on last year's team.
Right.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Got to place it on how they play on the gridiron.
And yeah, that was one of the things that I read, that one of the criticisms of this is that it's still the college football playoff selection committee, and their criteria seems to be a moving target every year. And they've never really come out and said, these are exactly the things that we base it on. But the one thing is, it's the top 6 conference champions and then 6 at large. And so, so
if you win your conference, you should be in, because to win your conference, you should be ranked up. Right, but qualify.
But there's 10 conferences, right? There's Power 5 and other 5, and so it just kind of depends, because like they said, there's been some years that bigger conferences. The example was the Pac-12, and I know I'm saying that again, but the ACC's always had Clemson, so you can't really use them. But that the conference champ has maybe lost 3 games. And so that might put them below, even though they're a Power 5, that might put them below another 5 conference champ. There are years UCF and Cincinnati
went 13-0.
Yeah, and BYU, would have been ahead of a team like that, even if they'd won the conference championship. So, yeah. And a couple of other interesting things that we went over a lot of this, but one of it is, they said, revenue distribution is going to be possibly a sticking point, because now, they're including other 5 in this. And typically a lot of it has been the college until this last year when Cincinnati was there. The college football playoff money distribution has been among the top conferences, Power 5 conferences. And so the other 5 have said, yes, we're on board with this, but, they're going to want a piece of the pie too. And in fact, I've got some numbers, some estimates. There are estimates that this will be worth up to $2 billion. People say that's like a little bit high, but more realistic is like 1.5 to 1.6 bill. And which the average would be like 145 million per game.
Wow.
Now, not each game's going to be the same, but if you averaged it out, right? I mean, of course, the championship game's going to be, worth more, but yeah.
Worth more.
And then and then also some student athlete revenue sharing, which in these days, what we're doing is probably fair, especially when some kids don't play in, their postseason games because they don't want to get hurt before the NFL or something. And they're like, that's not enough an incentive to, keep the number 1 draft pick in if he wasn't, really too interested in, their number 12 seeded team going. But it might, keep some of those other players in there who, might keep them in.
If they are shared, if they get part of it.
Yeah, and they're talking about, like, let's say one number I saw was like 30 grand. And they said as big as they expect the media deals to be and stuff, that won't be a problem to be able to give all the players. I know, right? Wow. But they also said, though, then you have to think, well, some players, they're only going to play 1 game, and some players may play 4, right? And so then how do you decide how you're going to distribute that, or are you just going to take everyone that wins? But then that's going to be an interesting thing if they do that, and this just popped into my head, what they do for March Madness too. Because I know the teams aren't as big, and I guess maybe total number of athletes would probably be similar since basketball teams are so much smaller than a football team. Might have to do the math on that. But of course, there's 60 plus teams in March Madness. So I'm sure if football players start getting some postseason money, then basketball players are going to want some postseason money too.
Well, right. And what's wrong with that?
No. Yeah. I mean, if that's going to happen, yeah. And how about some of these volleyball players too?
And let's get the tennis girls involved and the gymnastics.
Yeah. I was watching Minnesota play. Who were they playing the other night in volleyball? Oregon.
Uh-huh.
And they're playing at Minnesota. That arena where they play, and I don't know how many it seats, packed, which Texas is like that too. Texas has a volleyball game and the place is packed. And that's how Minnesota was too. So, yeah. Anyway.
Awesome. That's awesome.
So,
well, when Patty Gasso's softball arena gets redone, and it should be packed. It's always sold out.
Yeah, so. Exactly. Yeah.
Build it bigger, and we'll all show up.
Yes. And then, if the athletes are going to get paid, they all should get paid something. Maybe not all the same. I get that they don't all bring in the same amount of money. But
right. I get that football brings in the majority of the money to all universities.
Right.
I totally get that.
Yeah.
But we have to include everybody, at least a little bit, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, and football's what helps a lot of those programs even be a thing. So
correct. That's true. Yeah. That's true.
So and hopefully that won't change with how NIL money's, people who were giving to the program and might now be giving. I know I'm getting off on a totally different topic, and I will table that soon. But sponsors who used to give to the school and the football program, now they may just be giving money to a player or the collective. And it'll be interesting in a few years to see how that actually impacts the income in the athletic department.
Of the department.
And if it trickles down to some of those lesser sports and changes how much money those sports have to compete and be a part.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm sure that will just take some years to look at and then do some number crunching.
Right.
But surely in, say, 5 years, we'll be able to tell a little bit of that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of all I have today. I'm glad the game was
well,
fun.
You've done a good job, yeah.
I missed the light show. Thanks for telling me all about it.
It was exciting, and there'll be another night game, so you'll get to see it. We play Nebraska on Saturday.
We do, and they don't have a coach right now.
Right. Scott Frost just got fired. $15 million buyout. If they'd waited until October the 1st, it was cut in half, but they decided it wasn't worth waiting.
Wow. Okay. So I did not know that about the buyout. Man, I don't know.
So he's a wealthy guy, but he doesn't have a job.
Wow. But yeah, I guess I always find that a little bit interesting, because really, is that going to change the number of games they were going to win or lose before October? I don't know.
I doubt it.
Yeah.
But it gets him out of the way so they can be actively searching for a head coach.
And it's about recruiting too.
Pick up, right. And that way they can tell their recruits, we're going to bring in somebody that's better. We're going to have a better record next year, so we want you on board.
You know who I saw was on the short list? Well, that people are floating.
There were several. Yeah. Who did you see?
Mark Stoops.
Yes. Yeah. Mark Stoops was on there. I don't know. I mean, he's done really well at Kentucky. So I don't know if he'd leave Kentucky to go to Nebraska, but it is definitely a storied program. So he would be able to get all the money that he wanted, I think, to build a dynasty there.
You know, Stoops is a name, right? I mean, no matter which Stoops you're a name. And then Matt Campbell,
Matt Campbell was listed,
Yeah.
And again, it would probably be better financially to build a team than what he has at Iowa State, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Due to the legacy.
Yeah.
And then Gary Patterson's name was on there.
Oh, I didn't see that. Of course, look what he's done at Texas. You were telling me, and I heard that last night too. Talk about Gary Patterson.
Their defensive analyst. When he was fired by TCU, Sarkisian picked him up to be a defensive analyst. So he was on the sidelines of that Alabama-Texas game, and he may be the reason that their defense was real yesterday.
Yeah.
When I saw him on the sidelines, then I had to Google and check it all out. But, yes, he was hired to just help analyze. But he had his Texas emblem on his shirt, and he had his visor on, and he was running around like he did at all the TCU games.
Oh, Gary. Oh, Gary.
And he's got a great defensive mind, so I think he's helping Sark out.
Yeah, well, that's what that's what they're saying on TV too. Yeah. Oh, I know.
Maybe he'll take Nebraska, and we'll get him out of the conference.
Okay, that would work. I would take that.
They did say that they're just going to name one of their associate head coaches as interim for the year to finish out the year.
Oh, okay.
And he could potentially be a guy that stays. He actually played at Nebraska. I think his last name is Joseph.
Okay, yeah.
But he would be the coach on Saturday.
Okay.
He's who our coach will shake hands with as the interim head coach there at Nebraska.
Yeah, I'm not sure that coaching change is going to change what's going to happen on Saturday. But, you know.
Right.
I suppose App State and Marshall would tell you otherwise, so.
Probably so. Probably so. And the other bit of information I had was that when the Bama guy took out Ewers for Texas, their quarterback, then it's considered a bruise to the collarbone.
Okay.
And he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay.
OU Texas is in 4 weeks.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if they're saying 4 to 6 weeks, so we don't know who to plan on as QB.
Yeah.
Or if it's really going to be longer, if it'll be after the OU Texas game. But there could be a QB change on the horizon there.
Okay.
At least when we meet up in the Cotton Bowl.
Of course, it took Sark a while to actually say that yours was going to be QB1 versus Hudson Card. You know.
Correct.
So, which I don't know if he was. Everybody knew Ewers did not leave Ohio State to go down there and sit on the bench.
Right, to be a backup.
Yeah,
nobody wanted to do that.
Yeah, except for maybe
he was
going to
be a backup at. Yeah, well, he was going to be a backup at Ohio State. So,
yeah,
why would you stay there if it was the same thing?
Right.
So,
exactly. Yeah.
He does need a new haircut.
Oh,
maybe he'll get one while he's sitting on the sidelines.
That mullet, I just can't even with it. I can't even with that. I mean, that rivals Mike Gundy any old day. And not in a good way. That is a trend that should have died back in the 80s.
I agree.
Go away, the mullet. Okay. So I guess we'll be talking later about...
Yes.
Okay.
We'll meet up again after the Nebraska game. And remember, it's at 11 o'clock on Saturday.
Okay.
I think on ABC.
Yeah. Yes, I believe so.
I think.
It is on TV. I know that. And it's not just on ESPN Plus, which is what this past week was on. Yeah. So make sure that we'll be here Mansplaining free zone. Talk Sporty is a mansplaining free zone. And yeah, we'll be here next time to Talk Sporty with Dana and Shawn.
All right.
See you later, friends.
See you later.
Bye-bye.